I know some of you have already heard the story, and some of you haven't, but haven't we got an amazing God? Yes. And the song I've been having lately is Our God is an awesome God. He reigns in heaven and earth. I'm not going to sing it, but I keep getting the song. So I know a few of you have animals. Not all of you have animals, but I have animals. And I believe that God is with you in all situations. About 3 weeks ago, our cat Holly had to go to Walnut Tree Vets. And the vet looked at her eye and said it'd be a large amount of money and we can't save her eye. She has an ulcer in the back of the retina and also an eye infection. So she was booked in for the next day, which was a Tuesday. And the night before, Robin went out with the dog, Buster, and Holly got out. Every time we mentioned the word I, she bolted. I am not coming near you. And we couldn't get her in for nearly a week. Couldn't even come in for food or anything. So we went to rebook her in for the Friday, had to go to Walnut Tree again. And of course, before they have any surgery, they have to be examined by a vet. Now, me and Robin don't drive, so we got a taxi there again. And we decided on the way back to get the bus. But before this happened, we had to go through all the consent forms. So everyone knows if you have animals, you have to have their permission to go ahead with the treatment. Hopefully your animal will wake up after the treatment. So we went through all the medical side of it and we ticked all the consent forms. I went, yep. Said bye-bye to the cat. And then they said you will get 2 phone calls, one when she's had the op and one when you collect her. We said, okay, then bye. So we walked to the Walnut Tree bus stop. I weren't even at the bus stop 5 minutes and my phone's going. This is before 8 o'clock in the morning. And it just come up Milton Keynes. I thought, well, do I answer it, don't I answer it? It had no name, and I'm normally one of these, if it hasn't got a name, I don't answer it. And I'm sure there's many of you that do the same. So I was like, I'm not picking it up. And Robin goes, well, answer it. And I'm like, oh. So I went, hello. And they went, is that Mrs. Owens? I said, it is. They said, Holly's eye is perfectly fine. Can you come back to the vets? We went, what? We hadn't been at the bus stop even 5 minutes. We walk in the surgery and they said, oh, it's Mr. and Mrs. Owens again. I thought, well, they're enthusiastic, aren't they? So we took a seat and we waited and the vet called us through. They said, we don't understand this. One in very rare cases this happens. She was only on a pain relief. They said, the ulcer behind the retina has gone. The infection in the eye has gone. She'll be on eye drops. Well, she still is on the eye drops for about a week to get rid of the cloud. And then after that, she'll have perfect eyesight. And on the way out, the receptionist said to me, I've been told in group I have to watch what I say here. She was slightly older. Not too old, but she said, did someone pray for your cat? And I suggest they did.
I forgot to mention that when we're sharing our stories, it's really important that we don't share names, but I think in your cat's case, we're all right. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to share? Ian has, yeah.
Mine's not a funny cat story, unfortunately. The song Love Divine is just amazing, isn't it? The words are just incredible. The first time I ever sang that was at my sister's funeral, and I sang it, and the words meant nothing whatsoever to me. Absolutely nothing to me. I knew there was a God somewhere, a bloke that lived in the clouds, and I also knew that I'll be okay. You know, I wasn't Saddam Hussein or Adolf Hitler, and I was all right. I'm not a bad guy. It wasn't until years later when I picked up the Bible that I stole from school, which is another story. God's got a funny sense of humour. And I read that if God's justice, I read about God is perfect and love. So when I did things wrong, he's going to have to judge it. And it absolutely destroyed me. I was, I was in tears. I thought, I'm done. And as I read it, I read about Jesus. And it told me that Jesus died for me. I still get emotional now. Jesus died for me. And it revolutionised my life. I just fell down and I said, Jesus, I need you. I need you. I'm really sorry. You're the only way. And literally, I cannot tell you how personal that God, that bloke above the clouds, actually was personal to me. It was as if he was sitting next to me. And what I'm saying that for is those words are now poignant. And if you're listening on the video or you're here and you don't know what it means to be born again with God, then please, you are missing something special. Speak to Stuart, speak to me, or speak to somebody that you know. But you're not perfect. We all do things wrong. But I tell you now, you have got a revelation coming if you've never experienced it. And please talk to somebody about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Phil, do you want to come out? Oh, did you want me to come to you?
Right, I just wanted to say that I shan't be here next Sunday. And I shall miss the rain and, being outside and all the work that has to be done. But the reason I'm not here, I shall be at another church. And the other church is where my youngest granddaughter is being baptised. I only was told last night that she's been baptised, and we've been praying for her for many years. She's now doing her A-levels in her last year. And it's just amazing because she's had quite a broken life in many ways. So I'm really pleased that God is working in that. So please pray for Jemima for next week. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Phil. That's awesome news about Jemima. Judy. Oh, sorry. Belinda's here first, and then Judy.
I wasn't sure I was coming up, actually. There we go. I haven't kind of got my head around this, as in kind of worked out what to say, because I wasn't planning on coming up. But it's interesting that Lisa mentioned a song. Ian mentioned the song that we sang, Love Divine. Lisa mentioned our God is an awesome God. And God spoke to me through a song this week. It just randomly came into my head. I couldn't even remember who'd written it. And it was when I was just getting ready at home, I'd listened to the Lectio, and this song came into my head, which is Soften My Heart, Lord. Soften my heart, Lord, soften my heart. From all indifference, set me apart. And I'm going to have to look at the rest of it, sorry. Memory like a sieve. Oh. To feel your compassion, to weep with your tears. Come soften my heart, O Lord, soften my heart. And I had that song in my head for the rest of the day. I went to John Lewis, which you won't be surprised about, And I was sat in the cafe, and the song came into my head again, and I had to sit there and I looked up all the words. And I'm eating my scone with my jam and butter, and I had tears running down my face. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, what are people going to think? I'm sitting here all on my own, Billy no mates, and the words to the song were really touching my heart. And I thought, I know this is for me, that, God wants to soften my heart. And there are many things that make us have a heart that's hardened, sometimes hardened towards God even, and sometimes hardened towards other people and their brokenness. And I just thought, Lord, I want you to soften my heart towards you. So I don't know why, I just wanted to know him more, to feel him more. And, the things that stop us, I guess, from feeling that compassion, feeling that love, disappointments, hurts, pain, loss, all of these things kind of tend to make us feel hardened towards God, and maybe sometimes hardened towards the needs of other people. So anyway, I just guess I just want to say that, it was something that really touched me. And maybe you are in a place where you feel indifferent. Soften my heart from all indifference. It's so easy to feel indifferent and to lack compassion for other people. But it's also easy to push God aside and to have a heart that's not soft towards him. So if that's for you, it's definitely for me. That's why I'm sharing this morning. Thank you.
Judy.
We went on holiday at the end of January and had the great pleasure of spending the whole of February in Spain at our favourite hotel. But you never go on holiday from God. And we'd only been there less than a week, and God gave me a word for somebody else who was there on holiday. Apart from saying good morning to her in the lift, I had no idea who she was, didn't know her name or anything. Anyway, I sort of thought, I'm going to have to go and deal with this, like you do, because if God tells you to do something, he don't let go. So I went and had a word with this lady, and basically I was just to say to her that Jesus was there for her and wanted to be her friend. And she talked to me, and she was fine, and it was all lovely, and she thanked me. And her husband was there. A few days later, in the middle of the night, her husband had a massive heart attack, was taken into hospital, and a few days later he died. At that point, I thought, gosh, that word was so good for her. She needed to know that Jesus was there with her. And I chatted with her a few times. Her daughters came and everything was fine. Well, not fine, but anyway, they sorted it out. I've not heard from her since, so maybe that's all God wanted of me. But you know what? God also has a sense of humour. And while there, I took up a new career. It's the last career I ever thought I would ever do, but I was modelling clothes for a local ladies' dress shop. I know, you can laugh as much as you like, because I thought it was totally ridiculous for something that I should do. Anyway, off I went the week later, and there were 3 of us. This particular shop, the lady caters for the mature woman, and all her models are older ladies. She's been known to have a lady in her 90s be a model for her. So there were three old ladies stuffed into the office at the back of this place, along with a desk, a computer, a filing cabinet, a large office chair, a rail of clothes, a lady to help us dress, all in a small office that was probably about as big as this end of the stage. Do you know, you get to know people really well. When three of you are stripping off to your underwear as fast as possible, bearing in mind that we're all elderly ladies, and getting dressed up in different clothes, and then going outside and having these things introduced. I should also mention that, of course, most of this was in Norwegian, because the shop owner was a Norwegian lady. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, and we all had a lot of laughs, because all of us felt fairly ridiculous. But you do get to know people, and a few days later, I met one of the models in the shop, and she greeted me like an old friend, and she'd got a bandage up one of her arms, and asked her what the problem was, and basically she was old, and her skin was very taut, and it had just literally split, which is very uncomfortable. And I asked her if I could pray for her in the shop, and she said, "Oh, yes, please." I prayed for her, made her a bit weepy, and I know God was touching her, which was a real privilege. Again, I have no idea whether God did anything with her arm, but he certainly touched her. And it was a great privilege to come home knowing that I'd been used of God, because before we went, I was kind of feeling, here am I, I'm hardly got in my feet under the table as a new elder, and Barry has now become a trustee, and the first thing we do is leave the country. And but to go on holiday and find that God uses you like that, it was a real privilege and a real reassurance from God. I'm also now under contract to be model again next year.
Thank you, Judy. Would anybody else like to share anything that God's been putting on your heart?
I guess our small group is probably quite unique in that, while most of our folks live within Milton Keynes, one couple actually lives in Ilkeston now. He used to live in Bingley. And has recently moved. We meet by Zoom. We've been praying for him and his wife that they find a place where they can settle, which they have. The church they were settling is quite outgoing and outreaching, but they still needed to find their position within that church. And they've been praying that they could be involved up the front with another small group. Well, that didn't seem to be happening. They also have an ageing relative who still live in Bingley, and they have to travel backwards and forwards to meet with and to try and organise some of her care, because she's in a care home. And they wanted to get her somewhat nearer to them so they could look after her. By the way, he doesn't drive, and nor does she, so everywhere he goes by public transport. So we've been praying for that situation as well. That's been complicated by the care system and the care home itself. So there was lots of things which were stopping that happening. We had some news this week, which sort of good news, bad news in some respects. We were told that they had finally probably resolved the problem which stopped this elderly relative leaving Bingley. They've also found a home which is suitable for her in Ilkeston, and so that seems to be going quite well. So that's one answer to prayer. At the same time, they have just started their own home group. They thought it was going to be quite small. The previous leaders of that home group are having health problems, so they can't join with them very often. And they thought they would possibly be meeting once a fortnight, perhaps at a weekend. But their inaugural meeting was this Wednesday, which is the meeting time that we meet. And at that meeting, they had more people there than they'd expected. They also used Zoom to contact with this other ex-leaders, so they were able to join with them. So yet another answer to prayer. Sadness, group is going to run every week, every Wednesday, so they will no longer be joining with us. But we will still keep them in our prayers. So this is not really my testimony, it's a testimony to God's provision for us and answering of the prayers that we bring before him.